Today I'll be talking about my Centurion Tenpai deck. It's a great deck going first, and it's a great deck going second. It has the Centurion engine, the Tenpai engine, and your hand trap engine. And that in total consists of 55 cards in your deck. And to start off with the hand traps, we play 3 copies of the best hand traps in the game, 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom, pretty much a generic negate. And we play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence is pretty much a generic monster negate. It doesn't play into Called By, and it doesn't play into Thrust, so Impermanent Ash, they're pretty good. We also play 3 copies of Drolin Lockbird. Drolin Lockbird is there because it stops your opponent from comboing off. When your opponent combos off, they need to add cards from their deck to their hand, and Drolin Lockbird just stops that. And that's 1, 2, or even 3 less interruptions you have to deal with in the next turn. And finally, we play 3 copies of Effect Veilers. Even though it's a worse version than Infinite Impermanence, at least you can activate this card during your opponent's normal summon or pretty much any time during your opponent's turn. So we have 3 copies of Effect Veilers. Next, we're going to move into the 2 copies of the next best hand traps. 2 copies of Ghost Ogres. Nice spell, like a nice field spell, continuous, or monster pop. And that sometimes that could be very devastating during their turn. And moving on, we have 2 copies of Ghost Mourner. Negates when your opponent's special summons, so it's not as good as Effect Veiler or Imperm, but it's still a pretty good hand trap overall. Then we're going to move on to 2 copies of Nib. Nibiru, paired off with any other hand trap, really devastates your opponent's turn. Most likely they'll have to end their turn afterwards, after you play Nibiru and complementing with one other hand trap. So Nibiru in your hand trap selection feels pretty good, especially when it's 21 hand traps in total. Moving on, we have 1 copy of DD Crow. DD Crow, I think it's very good in this format because a lot of cards would target their graveyards to either special summon or add back to their hand. And whenever it does come up, DD Crow is a really good effect. And finally, we have Bestial hand traps. We play 1 copy of Bestial Magnum Head since it's limited to 1. It interrupts your opponent's light or dark monster, and it's also a Tenpai Dragon Searcher during the end phase. And in case you already have a Tenpai Dragon starter in your hand, you can go for Bestial Druid's Form, which is a nice monster removal. Moving on to our Centurion monsters now. We play 2 copies of Primera and 2 copies of Trudea. I play them at 2 copies each because if I had them at 3 copies, if I drew multiple copies of either one of them, they feel like bricks, and it feels like you have very limited plays. And also, you're also playing the Tenpai Dragon engine, so you also have to consider that and make room for your Tenpai Dragon engine too. So 2 copies of each. And we play 1 copy of Atri. Atri, it's an extra tuner. It's also treated as a non-tuner. And also, if you have an Embla Oath in your graveyard, it's pretty much a draw 1 every turn during your turn and during your opponent's turn. So Atri can actually pop off. And finally, for Centurion monster, we have Gargoyle, and Gargoyle is just to extend into your Synchro 12, or in rare cases, your Centurion Synchro 8 monster. So that's it for the Centurion monsters. Moving on to the Tenpai Dragon monsters, we play 2 copies of Tenpai Dragon Pydra. I play them at 2 copies. Because same reason, if I draw multiple copies, they feel like bricks, they limit my plays. And also, if my normal summon on Pydra gets negated, I have to rely on my special summons now, which is less favorable than normal summons. Like, you can still get extra bodies and extend, but you mainly want to be careful on what your normal summon is. And we have 1 copy of Tenpai Dragon Chundra, the OTK enabler. It's also a level 4 tuner. Worst case scenario, you can go into your level 12 Synchro plays or your level 8 Centurion monster. to extend your synchro plays from there. Chundra, OTK enabler, and we have one copy of Tenpai Dragon Fadra. It's also an OTK enabler, gets more bodies on the field, more dragons on the field to hit your opponent, go into your synchro plays, and yeah, just finish the game from there. And finally, we have one copy of Genroku. Ideally, you want to add this card to your hand so you can special summon it as a level 4 tutor monster, but at the worst case scenario, you can go into a Tenpai Dragon OTK just by attacking multiple times and reducing their life points to 0. And also, if you're locked into dragon monsters, you can go, as I'll talk about later, you can go into Bistio the Spader, you can go to Centurion Auxilia, they're dragon type monsters, or you can just actually play the Tenpai Dragon Synchro monsters if you know you can go into an OTK. And moving on, we have the miniature Kashtira engine, and we play 2 copies of Kashtira Fenrir. 2 copies since if I special summon one, I can add the other. It's a great discard target for your field spells, and worst case scenario, it's great follow-up for the next turn. And also, complementing Kashtira Fenrir, we have the 1 copy of Raysos, and Raysos is there because of set rotation, as I'll talk about later. Moving on, we have our Bistio Lubellians played at 2 copies. It's a level 8 monster, great into your level 12 synchro plays, and also it also complements Branded Regain, which essentially is a broken card that lets you draw 1 and reborns a Bistio monster whenever your opponent special summons. So, pretty good card in this deck. Play it at 2, same reason as the starters I play at 2. Drawing multiples is just a brick, better to play them just at 2, and to conserve your deck space too. And moving on to the spells and traps, I play 3 copies of Stand-Up Centurion. I play them at 3 copies because it's an extra body on the field, an extra special summon, and also helps to extend into your synchro plays if necessary. And we play 1 copy of Sengen Summoning. Obviously, you need this card in your Tenpai Dragon deck. You can add Genroku to your hand to extend your synchro plays. You can add Chundra or Pydra to your hand to go for the OTK. Overall, this is a great card, and it's limited to 1 for a very good reason. And we have 1 copy of the field spell Raysos to add Fenrir to your hand to special summon Fenrir and just a pop up from there. And it's also a set rotation target to set to your opponent's side of the field if you know your opponent does not play any Kashtira cards. So this card is there just in case Sengen Summoning is already in your hand and you need another field spell target. And we have Terraforming to add our field spell, set rotation to also add our field spell. Also, it could be good going second if your opponent plays a deck that uses field spells. You set rotation, set 1 other field spell, and the field spell that your opponent tried to play doesn't go off at all. And we have 1 Pot of Prosperity. Most likely, you only want to banish 3 cards from your extra deck, but if it's like an emergency situation, you want your Tenpai Dragon cards to OTK, best to banish 6 cards from your extra deck. Moving on, we have 3 copies of Embla Oath. Embla Oath, it's like a slightly worse version of Stand-Up Centurion, as the monster that you select to place on your spell and trap zone, you have to use it as synchro material for a Centurion monster. So usually this is follow-up at for last resort. But it still gets an extra body on the field, and it still allows you to extend your synchro plays. And we have 1 copy of Wake Up Centurion. Serves the same purpose as Embla Oath. Goes into your level 8 Centurion monster or your level 12 synchro plays or your level 8 Centurion monster to extend your plays from there. Moving on to the board breakers, we have 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. We have 1 copy of Raigeki and 1 copy of Thrust. Thrust, going seconds, you can search for your board breakers, or if necessary, you can pretty much search for field spell, search for terraforming. and search for your field spell of your choice from there. Going first, you can search for Centurion Phalanx or Infinite Impermanence. And we have one copy of Sengen Kaimen, it's limited to one. For Kaimen, if you're going for the OTK, go for Chundra. You're going for an extended synchro play, go for Genroku. So that is the rule there for this deck, and it's limited to one, so only on one copy. We play one copy of Granted Regain, busted because it's pretty much a draw one and an extra Bestial Body on the field, and that just complements the Bestial Rebellion. We play one copy of Called by the Grave. Going first, it's very effective against hand traps. Going second, it's very effective against monsters in your opponent's graveyard. So, very main deck worthy. It's at one copy, so one copy of Called by the Grave. And finally, one copy of Centurion Phalanx. If you already have your Centurion engine rolling and you just need another target to add from your deck to your hand, you can go Centurion Phalanx by Centurion Auxilia's effect or Premier's effect. And that's it for the 55 card main deck. So moving on to the extra deck, for the Centurion side of things, we'll start off with one copy of Crimson Dragon. Synchro summon this and target two copies of Cosmic Blazer Dragons, pretty much one during each turn. Cosmic Blazer Dragon is a busted card. It banishes itself until the end phase, and that's the cost, so it's always going to come back. And also, it's a card negate or summon negate, which is pretty busted in this format, since there's rarely any monster cards that is an Omni negate now, since Baron and Apollousa are banned. We play one copy of Premier Primus. If you can't go into your level 12 synchro plays, you can still go into your level 8 synchro plays. With a level 4 tuner and a level 4 non-tuner, we play one copy of Legatia to draw one and pop one if we already have our Centurion engine rolling. Or if it's our first turn and don't have it rolling, we can go to Auxilia to add a Centurion card from your deck to your hand and help you go into your Crimson Dragon a lot easier. And moving on to our Tenpai Dragon extra deck side of things, we have two copies of Senpai Deck Dragon. You can either go into an OTK with this, or if somehow you can't, you can reborn the level 3 Tenpai Dragon monster and go to Bestial Despater from there. We have one copy of Senpai Transcendent Dragon, helps with the battle phase. And we have one copy of Trident Dragon, also helping with OTKing your opponent. And finally, we have one Black Rose Dragon. If you synchro summon this, blow up your opponent's field, and make sure you have follow-up either by Stand Up Centurion or your Embla Oath. Your opponent has no cards in the field, and if you can follow up after Black Rose Dragon, then you pretty much win the game from there. And finally, I'd say from the Tenpai Dragon side of things, one Ancient Fairy Dragon. You play 3 field spells in your deck, you can just pop one and add the other. And it's also a free special summon, which can be pretty crucial. So yeah, that's for the Centurion Tenpai Dragon side of things on the extra deck. One SP Little Knight, great utility card. One Bestial Despater, either level 4 tuner and the level 6 Bestial monster, or the level 7 Senpai Deck Dragon and the level 3, another level 3 Tenpai Dragon to go into Bestial Despater. And finally, we play one copy of Typhon. Even though it may seem to hurt the Centurion deck, if your opponent has a lot of negates on the board, or if it seems like it's overwhelming for you, Typhon is an easy, accessible card that you can go into and break your opponent's plays. And also, if you're playing a mirror match, Typhon can really help a lot. And yeah, that's it for the extra deck. And we'll move on to the side deck now. So for the side deck, if I'm going first, instead of playing extenders or anything else, I just play Floodgates, since hand traps cannot stop Floodgates. And because of this, I play 3 copies of Deck Lockdowns. For Centurion cards, primarily they just place the card to your spell and trap zone, so deck lockdown can be very effective against your opponent. And we play 3 copies of Solemn Strike. It's pretty much a busted monster negate and destroy. 2 copies of Dimensional Barrier, just in case your opponent relies on one type of extra deck monster. Dimensional Barrier can really pop off from there. And 2 copies of Triple Tactic Thrust. We already have the 3rd copy in our deck. We just add 2 more Thrust to either add the Dimensional Barrier or anything else that could really help you extend your plays. You play Moltormi Furos. Moltormi Furos just lets you draw a card each time your opponent special summons and pretty much forces your opponent to end their turn very, very early. And finally, if you feel like your opponent's playing Floodgates, or if they are playing Floodgates, 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. And that's it for the side deck. And we'll go ahead and do some scenarios, do some play testing on what you should do. And I'm gonna shuffle the deck unedited and do some examples of how we can play this deck. I'm gonna shuffle my 55 card deck. That's the best as I can. I'm gonna just fast forward this a little bit. So we're gonna draw first 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So going first, this is a pretty good hand overall. Centurion Phalanx is kind of like a break, but at least it serves as an interruption. Going second, what we would do first is normal summon Primera. Primera's effect, if they have Imperm, at least we have Stand-Up Centurion and Emblet Oath to follow with. If it does go off Primera, since we have Stand-Up Centurion already in our hand, what we would do is go ahead and add Trudea's added to the hand. Because we only have Centurion cards in our hand, we would play Emblet Oath, and for Emblet Oath, we would go ahead and get Atri and place it on our field. Since Atri is pretty much a draw 1 if we have Emblet Oath in our graveyard. So we place Atri in our spell and trap zone, and it's 4 cards in our hand. Then we will play Stand-Up Centurion. Stand-Up Centurion effect to discard Trudea, and what we would place is Centurion Gargoyle. And there's a Gargoyle, we will place it on a spell and trap. And next off, at summon number 1, this will be summon number 2, activate Gargoyle to special summon. Keep it as a level 8. Activate Atri's effect, special summon it. Atri will draw 1 since Centurion card and Emblet Oath in my graveyard. I'm gonna shuffle my deck here. And I'm gonna draw 1. And that's an effect Veiler. So next, what we can do 4 and 8, synchro into 12. And since we already have our Centurion engine rolling, we would go ahead and go for Legacia to draw another card. So Legacia's effect, draw another card. So that's 4 cards in our hand, 3 hand traps, which is really good for next turn. And I guess we just place Phalanx. And just keep in mind the number of summons that you did. This is summon number 4, so you're not really playing into Nibiru here. I forgot to add Gargoyle back to my hand. It's supposed to be Chainlink 1 Legacia and Chainlink 2 Gargoyle. So I just completely blanked out there. So Gargoyle is back in your hand. This is what your hand looks like now. Then, because we have the tuner on our field, we would place Trudea to make it a level 8 for the next turn. So yeah, that's your turn 1 play right there. I'll go ahead, shuffle my deck again, unedited, and draw my 5 cards. And my 5 cards are Effect Veiler, Stand-Up Centurion, Imperm, Umbra Oath, and Triple Tactics Thrust. So, going first, since we don't have a normal summon, what we can do during the draw phase, go Umbra Oath to place a Centurion monster in my spell and trap zone. And here, ideally, I want to put Centurion Primera to my spell and trap zone. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now going to the main phase, I'm gonna go ahead and activate Primera's effect. Special summon, activate Primera's effect again to add a Centurion card from deck to hand. So I'm gonna go ahead and add Centurion Trudea from my deck to hand. Here I will normal summon Trudea, activate Trudea's effect to place this, and I'm gonna place Gargoyle from my deck to my spell and trap zone. Here we're at 3 summons, and what I'm going to do next, activate Stand-Up Centurion, Stand-Up Centurion effect. I'll discard Thrust, and I'm going to place Atri since I have Umbra Oath in my graveyard. So just keep in mind, I've already summoned twice. My third summon, I'm going to go ahead and draw 1, activate Atri's effect, summon it to my field, activate to draw 1, shuffle my deck. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. So 3 hand traps in hand, which is really nice. I'm gonna go ahead and activate Gargoyle's effect, summon number 4, summon it as a level 8. Here what I'm going to do is use these 2 to synchro into Auxilia. Place it here. Auxilia, I'll do Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, Gargoyle. Gargoyle adds back to hand. And Auxilia will search me a Centurion card. In this case, I'm going to search for the Centurion trap card, Phalanx. Add that back to my hand. Set Phalanx. Go ahead and set your Imperm. And during the end phase, activate Auxilia's effect. Place Atri since you're going to be drawing 1 again. And yeah, you'll be set for next turn. And yeah, that'll be it for the video. I hope you give this deck a try. If you have the cards, it's actually pretty fun to play. I won my locals a couple times with this deck. And yeah, have a good day.